welcome to SafeR Journeys, a podcast dedicated to raising children, ending violence, and ending oppression.
We are your hosts. I'm Melissa, and I'm the Community Engagement Director with Safe Journeys, a domestic and sexual violence agency in North Central Illinois.
Yep, and I'm Heather. I also work at Safe Journeys. I am one of the preventionists here, and we want to give you a quick little trigger warning. There may be discussion of sexual and domestic violence today. As always, there's always the possibility. And Melissa and I wanted to quickly mention our coping mechanism again of giggling or laughing. We're sounding a little too happy when we're talking about these tough topics.
Yes, this is something we kind of mentioned back in season 1, but we wanted to mention it again for people just starting to tune in now, and just a reminder that laughter is a coping mechanism for talking about tough topics.
Yeah.
And our prevention team, we have to talk about a lot of tough things all the time. It's just our job to talk about horrible things like child sexual abuse, grooming, teen dating violence, domestic violence. There have been recently some really tough situations happening around here locally. And so one of the ways we get through this is we try to find some lightness and laughter. And sometimes that comes out in ways that other people will be like, that's kind of disturbing that you're laughing right now. It's I don't know how else to get through this.
Yeah. And the reason we're saying it again is my partner had recently listened to the last episode with us and was like, why are you giggling? That's pretty intense. So we wanted to make sure that we addressed it again, because clearly other people might hear laughter or, the levity that we're bringing to this topic. But the part of it's intentional as well, because nobody wants to listen to doom and gloom without a little bit of brightness in there.
Yeah. I certainly don't.
No, me neither. So what we're going to talk about today is how we can create safer spaces for LGBTQ plus folks. Primarily, we're talking about youth, but truthfully, this is for anybody who identifies as part of that community. So we're going to talk about how you can show up, how you can support these people, and we're going to talk about how you can do it in every area of your lives. So first one, big one, don't out anyone. You would think this is common sense, and I think nobody would intentionally be doing this, or a lot of people wouldn't be doing this intentionally, but it can happen accidentally. So a few things to keep in mind. If someone shares with you their gender or sexual identity, maybe ask them, in what spaces are you able to have these discussions or use this name or those pronouns, or say, how's your, same-sex partner, that kind of thing. Because you might be a safe person, but not everybody is going to be a safe person. So these individuals are often selective in who they're sharing their gender and sexual identity with. So ask. Nobody's going to be mad at you if you say, hey, are you out in all the areas of your life? If I see you at the grocery store, can I use your pronouns? They may say no, they may say yes, but it's good to know. Mm-hmm. And truthfully, there are a lot of ways to avoid discussing gender and sexual identity. So if you don't know, if you haven't had this, are they out? Just don't discuss anything that's going to bring it up. You can use ungendered words. You can change the topic. There are a lot of ways to go about that. I also want to mention, this is not your story. This is not at all your story. So if someone discloses to you that they are gay or they're bi or any of the, they're trans, you don't need to share that. You're not obligated to share that. It isn't yours to share. Additionally, you are not obligated to know their gender or sexual identity. There's the Savvy Ally book that I had recently read, and there was a story about someone who's like, well, how do I get my brother to come out as gay to me? I know he's gay, but he won't tell me. It's it's not, you just don't get to. Mm-hmm. That's the end of the story. When he wants to, he will tell you. And, it's not yours to know, and not push somebody to share that with you. Was anything else I wanted to say about that, outing people? I don't think so. I think that was it.
Perfect. We also want to talk about pronouns and language because that is so important to individuals in this community. And I did want to mention when it comes to not outing people, a lot of times young people will, when they share something with you, they'll follow it up with, but don't tell, da, da, da.
Yeah.
Or like, if you see me out with my parents, call me she. Like usually they'll offer it.
Usually.
Too, but sometimes they won't. And so I really like, Heather, how you said, double check with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, particularly with young people.
Yeah.
Because that's usually, this is when they're figuring out their gender identity or the sexual orientation, and it may be changing. And there's a lot of kids going through puberty are not comfortable with their parents knowing much.
Yes.
So please be mindful of that.
Yes. All right. When it comes to pronouns, please don't assume someone's pronouns. Offer yours first. Just say, I'd be like, hi, I'm Melissa. My pronouns are she, her. And then that creates a welcoming space where people can choose to share their pronouns or not. Some people just leave it out and that's fine. That's their choice. But other people, they're like, oh, good. I can share my pronouns here.
Yeah. I actually had a couple of young people say oh, I'm not comfortable sharing my pronouns, or I don't use pronouns. And the response is, okay.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yep. I love that. You can also privately ask if they use pronouns and what they would like you to use. And make sure you don't put them on the spot in front of others. They might not be out. So again, like I said, I share mine and it kind of creates the invitation for people to share theirs too. But it's not like, oh, wait, you didn't mention your pronouns. What are they?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Could you imagine a big meeting and somebody points, what are your pronouns? And if you don't use, the traditional or stereotypical pronoun, that could be very, very problematic.
Yeah. And I like to, at trainings and things, there's stickers that you can put on. You can just choose not to take the sticker if you don't want to share your pronouns,
Yeah, and we made a bunch of pronoun stickers specifically for these kinds of reasons. I think did you put she or she, her on your water bottle? Is that where I saw it?
I did.
So it's just a little another indicator for folks. You and I carry our water bottles everywhere. People are going to see she, her sticker on your water bottle.
Yeah.
Or someone's backpack or book bag, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that about it. It's just invitational.
Yeah.
It's part of being hospitable and inclusive, I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So again, they might not be out to everyone in the room or anything. And so just make sure you don't put them on the spot. Some indigenous languages in North America don't actually use pronouns. And like Heather said, some youth choose not to use pronouns at all. So that's okay. And also, their pronouns could be changing as they grow, as they evolve.
I actually, I work with the GSA at the college, and a student came to the GSA for the first time and said, well, I use he, him, but I'm not sure that's what I'm going to continue to use. So my pronouns might change in the future. And I was like, first of all, I wish that that individual didn't have to share that. It might change. But it was very, it illustrated the changing nature when you're trying to figure out your identities.
And that was very courageous to share such a time in their life when they're in transition, basically.
Yeah. I thought it was very cool of that person to share that.
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So for you all out there, when you're in doubt, use the pronoun they, or just avoid pronoun use. Use their name. Please don't say it unless they've said they like that, okay? But they is just fine. The singular they is a great pronoun to use.
Yep. Actually, I was reading this somewhat recently. Did you realize, I did not realize singular they used to be used more often. In fact, if you look through Shakespeare, he uses singular they a bunch of times in his writing. Yeah, I know. Cool, right?
Yeah.
I didn't, truthfully, Shakespeare's a lot. It's a little over my head. So I don't even remember when I read in Shakespeare in high school. But yeah, so Shakespeare used singular they.
Gosh, I wish I could go back to myself back in college when I was reading a lot of Shakespeare. And I was like, just like find stuff like that, because I haven't engaged with Shakespeare lately. But it'd be interesting with what I know now.
Oh, yeah.
To go back.
Definitely. Shakespeare. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to get on this tangent. I was about to go into like how we used to have male actors who dressed up as women.
Yes. That's exactly what shows were like back then.
Yep, absolutely. So I was about to get into, but we won't.
It's a great example.
It is.
Of, cross-dressing was very typical.
Yep.
And acceptable.
Yep, absolutely. Nobody thought twice about it.
Yeah, if you're going to go to a show, you expect it.
Yep, you expect there's going to be male actors dressed up as and portraying women. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So, shout out to Shakespeare, I guess, for being ahead of the times. So, talking more about pronouns, I know particularly the singular they is a struggle for some people, and that's understandable. There's nothing wrong with you struggling to change the meaning of a word in your brain. It's going to take some time. I want everyone to know that. You are not a bad person if you don't immediately adopt it perfectly. I don't have it done perfectly. I suspect Melissa doesn't have it down perfectly.
No, and I mean, goodness, we come in contact with individuals who share their pronouns and then will mess up, which we're going to talk about too, about messing up. But it's like, and the they pronoun, like it does take a lot of practice.
It does. You're reprogramming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't feel so bad about it as you're working to do this. But remember, it is a little bit of work and it's going to take some practice. And there are some things that you can do to help get on track. First one would be if you're going to put someone's phone or name into, say, your email contacts or your phone contacts, put the parentheses with their pronouns next to it. So every time you send that email, every time you get a text message, you're going to see the person's name and their pronouns. Really helps to solidify that. I always tell folks, too, to start using they with animals and objects. So, like, if I see a cute dog, and if you don't already know, I'm a huge animal lover. So if I see a dog walking down the street, I will be sharing that with somebody later in the day that I saw a cute dog. I would say they in reference to the dog because most of the time we don't know what the animal's gender is. So I just start using they. People might refer to their vehicles as like guys, I've seen guys who call their cars like a she. Mm-hmm. What if we start saying they? Yeah. Just little things like that is going to be helpful. And then I don't know if anybody's learned a foreign language before, but one of the things that helped me when I learned foreign languages was to write it down, the word, repeatedly, like you would do for spelling as a kid in elementary school. Do that with the person's name and their pronouns. If you write that down 50 times, your brain is going to remember you writing and visually seeing it, as well as if you're saying it out loud. Those 3 different ways really help cement that information into your brain. And what else do I want to say about that? Oh, this one was a really cool one also from Savvy Ally that I had not thought about. So with the singular they that people struggle with, imagine they have some little critter in their pocket or their backpack. So it's with them. So when you're talking about that person, you're talking about the person and their little critter. The book uses mouse. So pretend they have a mouse in their pocket. So when I would use I could say they, thinking in my mind about the mouse and the person. I thought it was a cute little way to do it.
Yeah.
And as you go through this, you're going to eventually start catching yourself. I'd say this is how you know you're making progress, is if you say the wrong pronoun, catch yourself in the act, and then make the correction. I know it feels bad, but you're on the right track. Keep going. Don't be discouraged.
Yes. Now, what happens when we mess up, right? You're going to, and that's okay. It's how you respond like what is important here. Okay. So first of all, like don't make a big deal about it.
You're going to want to.
Yes, you're going to want to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I'm such a bad person. I just messed your pronouns up. Please don't make a big deal out of it because then you're drawing more attention to it. So, and the thing is like you're making a big deal about your feelings if you make a big deal about this, because you're like, I feel so bad that I did this thing. But it's like you're almost drawing the attention like to you and making it less about them.
Exactly.
Just by making a big deal about this.
Yes.
Like you are more like person centered for the person that like you messed up with. If you just like don't make a big deal about it, make the correction and move on. Maybe if you want to touch base with them later or something,
sure.
But yeah. So first, just if you are corrected by somebody or the person that you messed up with, just offer a thank you. Say thank you for reminding me. Just make sure that you're trying again right away. Right. And then, so like, oh shoot, sorry. I meant they went to the store, and make sure you do better next time. So a good apology, right? We have the thank you for reminding me. I'm sorry. Correct yourself. And then do better next time. That's your commitment. You don't have to, I mean, you could say I'll do better next time if it's just you and them, right? But like in order to make a not big deal about it, you just do better.
Yep.
Like you practice. That means you've got more homework to do because you've got to come back and do better for this person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So another sort of in line with pronouns is let's try as a community, as a society, to use less gendered language. And some people are like, well, we don't use gendered language. Yes, you do. You use it all the time. You just don't realize. When you say my brother, that's gendered language. Mm-hmm. When I say my husband, that's gendered language. So we can start using different words that mean the same thing. So first things first, for the husband, for the brother, you can say sibling instead of brother. You could say my partner or spouse rather than using husband or wife. And the list goes on, right? Like you could say the fire person or the firefighter instead of a fireman. Yeah. On and on and on. So just start thinking about ungendering all of your language. One of the ones I personally struggle with is you guys. If you're from the Midwest, I'm sure you feel this pain. You guys it's you all or y'all, but this is what we say in the Midwest. So this one is a constant struggle. I'm always trying to change it. I am halfway there, maybe. I'd say sometimes I do it well and sometimes I don't. There's a lot of me going, crap, I'm trying to get out of saying guys, after I say it. But I'm working on it. I'll get there eventually, and try not to feel so bad about it. But some other alternatives, and I have heard teachers particularly use the ungendered instead of you guys. They'll say, hey, rock stars, yes. Hey, students, hey, kiddos. There's an Instagram teacher from Australia that I follow called his name's I Am Mr. Luke, and he says little legends. Yes, that's how he refers to it. That. Makes my heart swell. It's so cute.
Yeah. Do you know how much it throws off my child and their friends when I say, okay, friends?
Yeah, I'm
like,
sure.
What?
We're not your friends. No, I'm just kidding. But yes, friends, colleagues, there's just a whole lot of opportunity, different ways. I've been using you all or y'all a little bit more, which is funny because it's not like I'm not from the South, which is where you traditionally hear it, but it works. It works so well.
I'm so much better at writing these things.
So for sure.
Like when I'm talking to my prevention team staff, I'm like, hi team, hello wonders.
Yeah.
Like I'm so good at writing it, but when it comes to seeing people, I'm like, hey you guys.
I know. I say it too much and I kick myself figuratively afterwards. Like I'll be walking away from the conversation going, you did you guys again. So there are going to be ones that are going to be particularly difficult for you to get past that you've used your whole life. You know, what's actually, I remember being like 5 or 6 and calling to a group of my friends that were like walking too fast or something in front of me. I'm like, you guys slow down. They happened to all be girls and they're like, we're not guys. And I remember being like so appalled and shocked because I was like, no, you guys is just for everyone.
Yeah.
it you know, and even like I was 5 or 6 and I already had that cemented in my brain that way.
Right.
So go easy on yourself, commit to keep trying. And I want to mention that using gendered language, aside from individuals who might be trans or non-binary being hurt by gendered language, you're really putting our little ones into a box.
Mm-hmm.
You're limiting the imagination, the creativity, and their thought about themselves when you use gendered language. So keep that in mind as well. And for those of you who work with groups of young people, I remember being in, elementary school, boys lined up in one line, girls lined up in the other, right? For wherever you were going. It was just a way to organize kiddos. But you could do something other than gender.
Oh, yeah.
You could say, I want everybody with sneakers on in one line, or everybody with blue shirts, those kinds of things. So consider all the ways you're using gendered language and try to start dismantling that.
Yeah. Oh, I love those so much. Thank you. A bit about offensive and hurtful language. When it comes to, please don't use slurs. And I'm not going to list them here. I think it's important that I don't repeat them here and add to the trigger warning that I should have given at the top if I was going to mention some, but also just like people don't need to hear it.
Yeah, we talked about this before we recorded because we were like, do we tell them what the slurs are so they know? Melissa, I think your thought process was spot on, though.
I don't want to keep hearing it.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
We need to get those out of our language, honestly. And if you're not sure about a typical word that you want, like you think you're using correctly, or that you found yourself using it, but then you got some looks or something, like Google it, figure it out. Like it might be wrong.
I did this the other day. It was with a racist term.
That happens a lot.
And like,
not for you. I mean,
it wasn't like explicitly racist, but like after I said it, I went, actually, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Googled it and I was like, son of a gun.
Yep.
It isn't, I my inkling was correct. I'm not going to use that anymore.
Beautiful. See, and that's the right thing to do, right? Because like you had an inkling, you looked it up, and then it's like, okay, I'm banishing that from my vocabulary now. And if you find yourself even thinking about it, or you end up saying it again, you're just like, oh, no. Like, and kind of do that to yourself. I mean, like, and if somebody says it's offensive, apologize and say, thank you for letting me know.
Yep. There's not an argument with this individual who has said, hey, that hurts, whether or not it hurts. It hurts.
Yeah.
That means it was offensive.
And also, intention means nothing. Impact is everything.
Impact is everything, particularly when it comes to these slurs.
Yes. Yes. I mean, and a really good example of this, like queer used to be a slur, and is for some people still. But it's also been a word that's been reclaimed by the LGBTQ plus community. And
the younger folks.
Yeah. So some people feel it still hurts from about 20 to 30 years ago. And again, it's because of the way it was used by people.
It was used as a slur previously.
Yeah. So whatever language the person's using for themselves, use that back to them. Just mirror it back. Because you need to just take their lead, basically. And like, honestly, the word queer should only be used by the people who identify as queer. So just try to not use that word if you don't identify as queer. Yeah,
and if you're not sure, like with the mirroring of the language, if somebody isn't using the word queer, don't use it. Like, you can use LGBTQ plus, you can say trans, or like there's a whole variety of other options.
Yeah.
So if you're at risk of being offensive, just don't say the word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Easy peasy. Well, I say easy peasy after we talk about how hard it is to change your language. Easy peasy in theory,
yes.
but work on it. So the other thing we want to talk about in making spaces safer, more welcoming, and inclusive for people that identify as LGBTQIA+ is representation. And I am a cishet, white, middle-ish class woman. I have been represented always in movies, in like in images. It's much easier, right, to find someone who looks like me in stock photos than it might be for someone of a different ethnicity or someone who identifies as non-binary. So I have not had a problem with representation, but can you imagine what it might be like for individuals who don't see themselves represented on a regular basis? So they don't see themselves in their cartoons or their books or TV or in their workplaces or schools. That's going to say something subliminally to the individual. Mm-hmm. It's going to say you don't belong here, you don't fit in, things of that nature. And that is going to get internalized. Mm-hmm. And it's going to cause some distress, I would say, in their current moment as well as possibly in the future. So start thinking about how you can represent the LGBTQ plus community in everything you're doing, particularly if you're a teacher or you're an educator or you're working with young people. Find examples of LGBTQ plus people if you're talking about history. Or even in mathematics, like you would be surprised if you did a simple Google. If you're like historical figures in psychology that were LGBTQ plus, you're going to get a list. It's really not that hard to find them. And I think it also makes things a little more interesting for students when you talk about the individual. Even math, we have Turning, right? He was the code breaker. There's even that Benedict Cumberbatch movie about him.
Oh, yes.
So like there are opportunities in every subject.
Yes,
that you can bring in LGBTQ plus people or, issues that they may have dealt with. I know we've plugged Queer America podcast in the past, but I think that's a particularly great one for educators or people working with young people.
Yes.
So when we talk about the classroom and we talk about LGBTQ plus people, we are not talking about sex. Everyone is worried when we talk about gender identity, sexual orientation, that we're going to be talking about sexual intercourse. That is not the case. In a high school health class, maybe we're going to talk about that a little bit, but not with our second graders when we're reading a story. Using representation in that, in story time is particularly simple because you're not even saying anything about it. You're just reading the story. I was looking at some books for my niece and nephew. There's a cute one called Mommy, Mama, and Me. So you're, exposing the kids to a family that has two moms instead of a mom and a dad. And like, look, they do all the same stuff that mom and dad family would do, right? So they start seeing themselves represented that way. And there's endless amount of options. You just have to find them. And I want to mention this really should be done for all identities, right? So like class, religion, gender, ethnicity, race, all of the kids that identify that isn't, the mainstream, I don't even want to use that word, the more common or outwardly common identities. Don't forget these kids. Like if you have a Muslim kid in your class, make sure kids that, practice the Muslim faith are included in your curriculum. And again, it can be simply an image or it could be part of a story. There's just endless opportunities. So please don't forget to look into that. And you could also display the flags, of course, right? You can put the progress flag, put a sticker up saying I'm an ally or I've been trained in allyship. The flag is great. The rainbow is great. It's a starting point, though. It's not enough. So just keep that in mind. It's a starting point. And then recognize things like Pride, LGBTQ plus History Month, and maybe if you're in a school, start or support a GSA, which depending on what school you're at, it might stand for Gender Sexuality Alliance or Gay Straight Alliance. So they use both for the GSA acronym. But we know for sure young people who have taken surveys in schools that have GSAs, if they are identifying as LGBTQ plus, they feel safer on campus, even if they're not in the GSA, just knowing it exists on their campus.
Yeah, there's something to be said about like if you open up a space for people, or even like how we open up a space even with the pronoun stickers, right? Like there's some safety in that. There's an invitation, and they don't have to accept the invitation, but it's there. And that's what, like, it's just so important for us to create these little access points.
Yep.
And, allowing students to use their chosen name and pronouns is another access point. And this could be like, included on forms, name, pronouns, again, make it optional to write their pronouns down. When they create a name tag for themselves, write their name and then put down, invite them to put down their pronouns. Just thinking about things like that, even on their, I think about the classrooms where the kids have their names on their desks.
Oh yeah, the name tag right in front.
Yeah, you could even just do your name and pronouns next to it.
Yep.
Very simple from the beginning. And then you have an opportunity to talk about their pronouns. What is a pronoun?
Oh man, the language arts teachers, they could have a heyday with what is a pronoun. This is a great way for them to teach pronouns.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. And it's everybody has one, and just let us know what it is. And if it changes, let us know. Just stay in touch about it. And if you must, on things like forms and things, you could include a legal name option if you needed to, because if you need to track down anything, but usually you don't really. I mean, maybe through the office or something.
Yeah, I know at the college I'm at, there's a few places where they need the legal name for financial aid stuff.
Yeah.
I wish that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
But it's when you're dealing with outside organizations, or standardized tests might need legal names, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But give them an option for both, essentially.
Yeah. And then when it comes to the facilities themselves, so think about all gender bathrooms. I know we talked about this in a past episode, but have those floor to ceiling stalls indoors and things like that. And I know you had mentioned easier said than done, right? Because I know that the college where you work a couple days a week. Nope.
I did say this in the last episode or episode before. I had said they structurally could not do an all gender bathroom, but they worked. There was a lot of pushback from the GSA and other folks, and they have figured it out.
Oh my gosh.
They fully intend on doing at least one set of bathrooms, set. So it's going to have 5 of the floor to ceiling stalls for all gender, which it was a recent development that I was very, very, very excited about, because I thought it was a lost cause.
That is very exciting.
I know. And you started saying it, I was like, oh, I get to share the good news.
I saw your face and I was like, I don't know how to read this.
I know. Sorry.
It's all right.
But yeah, I think those are great. For me, I imagine economically, if you only did that from the beginning of building something, it would probably be cheaper than having 2 separate sets of bathrooms. But anyways.
Yeah. Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, great news.
I'm really happy to hear that.
Me too.
And then, when it comes to changing spaces, having those be all gender as well. Now think about how many cisgender people would have appreciated a private changing space or a shower. That would have been great. I'll tell you that in 5th grade, I would have loved to have a private changing space, especially when I was growing in the chest area at a faster rate than my peers. Yeah. And then they like cornered me and told me that I had the biggest breasts in the 5th grade. And I'm just like, well, and then I was very outgrown after that. Like they all outgrew me. But at that time, I was so hyper aware about it. I was like wearing extra large t-shirts. I would have really appreciated a private changing space.
I know the girl in my 5th grade class who had the biggest breasts because of gym class as well. And she did get hassled for it.
It's like, yeah, I can't do anything about it, guys.
Right. I know.
Or friends. Not friends.
Especially during
enemies.
Puberty.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, like, puberty is such a weird, awkward, scary time. And it's like nobody wants to have their bodies on display.
No.
To their entire class, like 30 other kids or something.
Also, you know, being in a space where there's so many people at the same time, you are in a state of undress. How vulnerable you are in that state, and how more likely, I'm sure, not only sexual harassment is, but just sexual violence in general. I would think that people would be very interested in having all gender changing spaces where you have private changing rooms.
I for sure would. As a grown lady who, you know, has to dress for doctor's appointments, things like that, I'm a lot more comfortable now at 40.
Right.
But I would still choose, if given the option, the private changing space.
Oh, absolutely. I'm
more comfortable in the private changing area or showering area. I just remember so many folks being so uncomfortable and changing for gym or showering after gym.
Yeah.
And then changing for swimming in high school. Now you're taking off your underwear too.
Yeah.
So you're not just in your underwear. Like the different ways we devised to like not show our genitals. It was like, oh, yeah. I mean, great problem solving.
Sure.
But, you know, we only had 2 bathroom stalls in there.
Exactly.
So it wasn't like everybody could use that. Anyways, I think we've made the point pretty clear that not only would single stall or, you know, private changing or showering areas benefit LGBTQ plus folks, but cisgendered folks as well.
Yeah, it would be great for everybody.
Agreed. All right. So next up, youth sports. This one I've been hearing a lot of things about youth sports recently, in part because I pay attention to Title IX as a part of my position here. So I was on a webinar recently about transgender youth in sports. And when I'm seeing youth in sports, I'm thinking high school and under. I'm not thinking collegiate athletes. I'm not thinking professional sports or semi-professional adult sports. So just giving you that before we get started. Let kids play on the team or the gendered team that they identify with. If a trans man student wants to play on the male baseball team, allow it. One of the pushback people often will say about this is they're going to have, they might have a
like unfair advantage.
Exactly, an advantage. And they're thinking particularly because of like hormones, like testosterone, right? Like they're going to be faster or stronger if they're using hormones. First of all, kids developing and going through adolescence and puberty are all over the place. You could have a kid who looks like they're 30 at 15 and another kid at 15 who looks like they're 10. So there's already they're already all over the place. So the hormone thing is kind of a moot point because everybody's hormones are in different places. The other thing is a lot of trans young people actually take hormone blockers. Rather, they're not adding in extra hormones. They're just blocking the natural adolescent hormones that they would be developing. So they don't have this other hormone that's going to make them a better football player or whatever the case may be. It's it's an uninformed view to say that there's going to be a disadvantage if the person uses the sports team of their gender identity.
Yeah. The media we love that we want to share with you is a Welcoming Schools kit that was done by the Human Rights Campaign, and it includes suggestions for staff development in your schools, videos and discussion guides, which are always helpful. I know we talked up those when we were
with Janine.
interviewing Janine. Yep. And also, this toolkit has an inclusive book list, which
it's a huge book list.
I love book lists.
Me too.
And questions and answers on handling LGBTQ plus topics in school. And we are going to be linking that toolkit in the show notes, as well as a Creating Safer Spaces document from Advocates for Youth. And I'm going to include the link for Queer America again, just because we love that podcast so much.
I was listening to it on my way here again. So every time I try to listen to a podcast as I drive to record that's related to the topic that we're going to be hearing. Get my mind in the game,
Yes.
And I was re-listening to a Queer America episode because I love Queer America so much. I might re-listen to the whole series.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I want to do it again too.
It's so good.
It is.
Okay, so now that we've gushed about the Queer America podcast,
yes.
Thank you all, of course. We love that you're listening. Share this with a friend if you can. And our next episode is going to be our last episode in our LGBTQ plus miniseries. And it's gonna sort of expand on what we talked about today a little bit. So we're going to be diving into the U.S. Department of Education's toolkit for creating inclusive and non-discriminatory school environments. And it has some other great, helpful resources as well. So keep listening for some resources, and we can't wait to speak to you again.
Yeah, bye.
Look out for new podcasts every other Monday on anywhere that you can find your podcasts. Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Anchor FM, you name it. We're there. If you have any questions, and we would love to hear from you, you can email us at saferjourneyspod@safejourneysillinois.org. You can also message us on social media. We have a Facebook and an Instagram that you can find us at. And let's talk about some resources for anyone who's experiencing abuse. If you happen to live in and around LaSalle or Livingston County in Illinois, please feel free to call Safe Journeys support line at 815-673-1555. 24/7, confidential, services are free. If you don't happen to be in our area, there are 2 national hotlines that you can call for support. For sexual violence, you can call RAIN with 2 N's. That's the National Sexual Violence Hotline. Their phone number is 800-656-HOPE. They also have a live chat on their website if you're interested. And for domestic violence or intimate partner abuse, you can call the hotline, which is simply thehotline.org. This is our national domestic violence hotline, and you can give them a call at 800-799-SAFE or chat live on the website. Thanks for listening.